Good morning. I'm here today to share my views on the magic of life in the realm of teaching and learning. Let me begin by quoting Albert Einstein. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind. A true training of the mind does not mean spoon feeding, but learning to learn independently. Learning is the transference of knowledge, attitudes, opinions, views, and values from the guru to the shishya. But education is not a one-way street. It is a dynamic interaction between the teacher and the taught, wherein both the parties negotiate their way towards a higher understanding. True education happens when a shishya brings his own insights and understanding into the picture, and the guru has the sagacity to give him a platform for free expression of his views. Education, in this sense, is a truly collaborative process in which mental, intellectual, social, and moral education is a never-ending process. Education is not about cramming a child's head with facts and data. Today, information is available at the press of a computer button. Even Tagore in his time said, "Don't limit a child to your own learning, for he was born in another time." Education is a process of empowering a young mind to think, to explore, and to discover what is already there within. Though this definition sounds a trifle ill-fitted in times of paid project-making shops, crash courses in literature, and page-wise payment for completing homework. Unfortunately, today, the focus of education has shifted. It is all about competitions, exams, grades, and cut-off marks for entry into prestigious institutions, which are then visited by corporate honchos to select suitable candidates for placements. And the talk is all about pay packages. Is there any parent today who wants his child to become a school teacher? We pay lip service to the nobility of the teaching profession until and unless it attracts the best minds. The standards of education cannot improve in any country. Having said that, for me, I couldn't have chosen a better profession. It's been a fantastic journey. The amount of love, affection, and regard I have received from my students is overwhelming. From my personal experience in the last 34 years spent as a teacher, I can say that a meaningful life is not about being rich, being popular, being highly educated, or even being perfect. It's about being real, being humble, being able to share ourselves with others and touch their lives in some way. A teacher can do wonders to help shape the lives of students. The bright ones will somehow find their way. But for the slightly shy and nervous ones, a little love and affection and faith in their abilities, and an effort by the teacher to hone their skills or talent can go a long way in shaping their destiny. After all, the journey between ma and man is only 2 letters away. There was a girl in my class who was rather diffident about speaking in class or reciting a poem, and that was mandatory for her grades in the CCE, in the evaluation process. I used to encourage her by just holding her hand while she spoke literally defying the boys to poke fun at her. I could see her growing in confidence. And finally, she learned to speak independently. Today, she sends me pictures of her anchoring events at college. My greatest reward. The budding poets and writers in my class, to whom I may have inadvertently transferred the love of the language, are feathers I proudly wear in my cap. Children are so observant that even personal demeanor, pronunciation, and diction tends to get aped. So teachers, beware. Is classroom teaching all about reading and paraphrasing a lesson from the textbook? No. It is not just conveying the intent of a lesson, but also linking it to some value precious in life. While we were doing Julius Caesar in class, one of my students actually fell off her chair when Caesar was being stabbed by the conspirators, because the atmosphere was so charged, and she was so shocked at the treachery of those whom Caesar considered his friends. So we took a little time off to discuss treason and betrayal and how we must make ourselves trustworthy. So we come away with something positive from such a negative situation. This brings me to the thrust of what I wish to focus on. To quote Shakespeare, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and entrances, and one man in his life plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. Each act or role is a gift. Life is a remarkable, fabulous, and magical gift. A gift that we must treasure. In this rat race, where anybody who wins is still a rat, we must take time off to be grateful and appreciate God's creations, one more beautiful than the other. Savor every minute of our lives. For that breath you just took, that's a gift. Life is a mystery which can be unraveled only one petal at a time. Every moment is precious. At every step is a new portal waiting to be explored. But life cannot be lived in isolation. One requires the help and cooperation of those one interacts with, thereby making it an exciting journey of give and take. The way one crosses every bridge in life determines the essence of the next one lying in store. Thus, the fabric of life is woven with all those precious moments one has spent, some beautiful, some not so beautiful, and some challenging. Life is like a game of treasure hunt. At every step, an adesh or indicator pops up. Some are simple to understand, and some are complex. One has to be calm and receptive enough to grasp them. Herein comes into play one's power of discernment and the use of one's free will. Every day one is faced with certain options: to cheat or not to cheat, to betray a friend or to remain loyal despite all odds, to lie or speak the truth at all costs, and scores of such situations. Every choice must be made deliberately and consciously, just as Robert Frost did when he decided to give up teaching and farming to fulfill his dreams of becoming a poet and a writer. So one must be prepared to face the consequences of choices made, good or bad. This is the game of life, in which one must continue to strive for that pot of gold or the magic at the end of the rainbow. Education begins at birth and continues through life. The environment at home, parents, siblings, other members of the family, peers, social networking, media, they all have a huge impact on the development of a child's personality. Undoubtedly, parents shower their children with unconditional love and support. But today, the focus is more on making money, achieving success, or even making both ends meet. Survival in this world is tough, and often it is the survival of the fittest. Under the circumstances, parents sometimes feel it is enough to merely satisfy the material needs of their children and do not realize that there is no substitute for quality time spent with them. They feel that once they have put their kids in educational institutions, the responsibility of educating them rests solely with the latter. That is far from the truth. The parents, as well as educational institutions, must come together to assume the moral responsibility of helping the children grow into beautiful human beings and responsible citizens. A case in study was a girl in my class who was left to grow up in the company of maids, chefs and chauffeurs, not to mention her tutors. She failed in every single subject. And I, for the life of me, couldn't imagine why that was so. So I had a personal chat with her, and she poured out her heart to me. And I realized why she had developed such a nonchalant attitude towards life. Children get their sanskar from their home environment. Hence, parents must exemplify what they want their children to emulate. Honesty, compassion, courage, and generosity can be taught infinitely better by example than by simply beautiful speeches. Parents must never lie in the presence of their children if they want them to be truthful. The child manifests qualities he sees and imitates as best as he can. Moreover, a child must never be reprimanded for a flaw he sees in the one who reprimands him. A teacher can never tell her children to come to class on time if she is perpetually late. A parent cannot ask a child to eat healthy food and stay away from long hours of watching television if she herself is a couch potato indulging in pizzas and burgers. A child needs to be not just smart and intelligent, confident and knowledgeable, but also one whose heart is filled with compassion and respect for all living beings. It completes him as a person. My favorite one-liner in school used to be, "Son, you could grow up to be a Nobel laureate, but if you're not a good human being, then you're persona non grata for me." Children must also be taught to confront their fears. They must know that it is only human to falter and to make mistakes, to give in to moments of weakness and sin. But above all, what matters is to acknowledge one's flaws and then to make sincere efforts to rectify them. I have always encouraged my students to freely interact with me in class and not worry about making a mistake. That's the only way to learn. Take your failures in your stride. Learn to acknowledge and appreciate performers and achievers. Believe me, your generosity will bring a lot of goodwill and love into your life. Soaring in the sky all by yourself can be very lonely and boring. You need the strength of Goliath to conquer your pride, which is any day tougher than conquering Mount Everest. Humility is the most endearing quality in any individual. The branches of a tree laden with fruit will always be bowed, whereas one that stands erect will offer neither fruit nor shade. In times of adversity, when the ground beneath your feet seems to be slipping away, jump atop surfboards and dance with the waves. It's not the end of the world. Shubi puts it beautifully. Harness wild waters and heal them to tame. Go ride your life and master your game. Education, sans moral values, creates mechanical entities. We need to embellish students by providing the right environment at home and in school to hone their moral facet with a view to enabling them to develop empathy for the less privileged. This can be done by sensitizing them to child labor, child trafficking, old age homes, differently abled children, and orphanages. When I used to ask my students how much quality time they spent with their grandparents at home, it usually had a very salutary effect. When we did Night of the Scorpion in class, we discussed the significance of karma, the ability to distinguish between right and wrong, the use of one's free will, which ultimately determines one's karma and eventually one's destiny. For we are the creators of our own destiny. Moral values are quintessential to modern education. Otherwise, educational institutions tend to become mere coaching institutes, churning out knowledgeable people bereft of emotions and sentiments. I believe that one's upbringing is reflected in how one treats somebody on the street, somebody who can do nothing for you in return. That is the true art of living. Being selfless is to be pious. Herein lies the bane of modern education. Its structure needs to be reshaped, and moral and ethical education needs to become an integral and pivotal aspect of it. Today, when greed, corruption, violence, and media manipulation are endemic in our world, how does one bring back the magic of life? How do we teach the basic values of decency, goodness, kindness, honesty, and humanity to young, impressionable minds? Kids today turn around and say, "Ye achhi achhi baatein rehne do, ma'am." They don't get us anywhere. How do we empower Tagore's moral man as against today's commercial man? There are no easy answers. First and foremost, we must remember that learning is a process. The student must feel the magic. He cannot be taught the magic. The magic is all around us. It's in nature's beauty. It's in the grateful smile of a woman you've helped across the road. It is in how you instill confidence in a student to be a good orator. It is in the quiet self-example of a teacher. It is in a dialogue which enables a student to appreciate the import of a poem which highlights a human value. This process can be directed by a sensitive teacher who draws out the best from a student by effectively mediating between the student, his parents, and peers. I leave it to this august house to contemplate and debate this question. I, for one, have no pat answer up my sleeve. A possible answer has been put forward by Albert Einstein. He says, "A calm and modest life brings more happiness than the constant pursuit of success. A peaceful mind and a creative life is the key to happiness. That is, if you truly want to be happy." Thank you.